Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Gavin Major, and this is a review of the Tier 6 British premium battleship Duke of York, which has just been released for 12,500 doubloons with no end date in sight, and for a bundle of 23,930 doubloons. I'll cover off what I think of those towards the end of the video. So this is a Tier 6 and 5 game of Domination on Land of Fire. In between we have a Bogey and a division with an Aoba and an Arizona. We have another Aoba, a Pensacola, a York, a Dunkirk, a Scharnhorst and a Colorado. Spawn on the left at the Charlie objective with 2 other battleships. I'm gonna move forward and see what's what, rather than straight away start running away from this objective, because you never know what you might come up against. Sometimes you might just come up against battleships, although being spotted definitely means a cruiser or a destroyer of sorts. However, I know there are only destroyers in the division, so as soon as I see the Arizona, then I should be able to. No, we have the Dunkirk, so we should be able to work over the Dunkirk. So, Duke of York is a King George V class battleship, and which was commissioned in 1941 November. Now, for a guide to the history, technical details and individual ships of the King George V class battleships, and I recommend Dragon Finale's 3-part guide, which will be carded top right now. So, Duke of York, in December 1941 she transported Winston Churchill to the United States. In 1942 she covered the Allied invasion of North Africa. In 1943 she covered the Allied invasion of Sicily and also escorted Arctic convoys, where she sunk the Scharnhorst in the Battle of North Cape. Let's see if we can abuse this York and knock his engines out. There we go, knock his engines out. Now, regarding the Battle of North Cape, Dragon Finale has also done a guide on this, and that'll be carded top right. Also, both videos carded will be on the end screen if you want to watch them afterwards. So, in comparison to the tech tree battleships, Duke of York has an average base HP. However, she has the second lowest HP pool, due to having one less repair party than the King George V. She has the joint second worst, but just below average torpedo reduction, which is 6% less than the King George V. So let's go back to the port and have a look at the armour. So here we are back at the port with the Duke of York, and we're going to be taking a look at her armour. So first of all, first thing to always mention is the superstructure, which is mostly covered in 16mm plating. That means, although it can bounce up to 8-inch AP, it's basically a farm zone for high explosive shells. So obviously, with these British battleships having that Queen Anne Mansion style bridge structure, that is a large target in which to HE spam away. Now, stripping that off and looking at the rest of the ship, let's start off with the bow and stern. Now, this is mostly covered in 25mm plating, which is sufficient to bounce up to and including 15-inch shells. So you'll be able to bow tank a 15-inch gun battleship. However, when the caliber goes up, expect to be overmatched. Should you be overmatched, then you need to then be looking at what's behind that. So behind that we have basically our casement armour. Now, it's also worth mentioning that your upper armour belt is obviously not able to resist 16-inch shells, and the same with the deck armour as well. So this is why recently, when I've been playing her, I have been noticing that Nelsons have been able to really smack the Duke of York for a good bit of punishment. However, it does have quite a thick armoured belt, and that armoured belt is positioned in such a way that you could potentially use it to angle against 16-inch gun battleships. So usually when I play Duke of York, I try and angle it in as I'm going in, then that way that maximises the amount of armoured belt that I'm offering the enemy, and hoping that that's going to bounce it off, and if their shells do come in through the front, then hopefully that's actually created a bit of enough of an angle on that front casement or front armoured bout, I guess you could say, in which to try and ricochet those shells. Now the turrets, basically very good armour all over the turrets. You do have a slightly thinner barbette below deck level, but that's when you reach the main armoured belt, so they should be pretty protected even when you're getting close. Going on to the torpedo bulge, well, obviously it doesn't really matter too much at the moment, but it's worth mentioning that the upper bout of the torpedo bout is actually quite thick, and that's in order to resist normal, like, shallow running torpedoes, I guess you could say. However, the lower armoured bout is obviously a lot thinner, and that is where deep running torpedoes from Japanese destroyers, as and when they might be introduced, could be a bit of an issue. However, being that's something that's not introduced into the game as yet, it's not really anything to be completely concerned about. So that just takes us to the Citadel, which is practically under the water. Now it does have a very thin top, however in order to get into that, you're either looking at a very long range plunging shell, or maybe a shell going along the length of the ship. It has to be probably 16-inch or more in order to overcome the armour. So you shouldn't really be taking too many hits into that, and because it's so below water level, it should be pretty safe, and you shouldn't be really getting Citadel that much. And well, that's everything regarding the armour. I'll go back to the game. So going on to artillery, she has 10 14-inch guns in 2 quad and a single dual gun turret. Now these are arranged with A turret being a quad turret up front, then we have B turret being a dual gun turret behind that, and then we have Y turret, which is a quad turret at the rear. Now this will give us a good number of guns for the tier. However, being 14-inch means that they aren't the greatest caliber, and they do then give you the shortest range of 15.9 kilometers. Now you have an above average reload time of 29.5 seconds, which is 4.5 seconds longer than the KG5. Now you have better than average turret traverse speed of 45 seconds in order to traverse 180 degrees. You have the second best HE shell damage, joint best fire chance, and second worst AP shell damage. This therefore gives you the third best HE DPM, second worst AP DPM, and average fires per minute. Due to her slower rate of fire, she has a lower DPM and fires per minute than the KG5. However, Duke of York potentially does have better auto bounce angles for her armour piercing, making it slightly more advantageous against cruisers. However, it's also worth noting that her traits are basically all in regards to her guns, which means she has superior HE pen, pyromania, and modest guns. The only part of pyromania that makes sense is that she does have a very high fire chance. However, she's not exactly getting lots of fires per minute, is the best way to put it. Going on to manoeuvrability, and you are the second fastest at 28 knots. You have an average turning circle of 790 meters, and you have the slowest rudder shift of 17.5 seconds. This rudder shift is 2.5 seconds more than the KG5. Concealment, and you are joint best at the tier, best by sea, air and smoke. I'll let you look at those values yourselves. Now going on to her consumables, you do have 2 repair parties, which is 1 less than the KG5. Now these will heal 302 HP per second for 28 seconds, which means that a single repair party will heal 8,456 HP. For your second consumable, you have some options. You can either have sonar, which you get 1 of, or you can have the secondary, enhanced secondary battery, which you'll get 2 of. Regarding the sonar, it will detect torpedoes at 3 kilometers and ships at 4.2 kilometers, has a duration of 94 seconds and a reload of 180 seconds. Basically, it's exactly the same sonar that is equipped on hood, but for some reason you only get 1 of them. Now, as always, down in the description will be the commander build and the modules used, but I should let you know that I have taken Aiming Systems Module 1, Steering Gears Module 2, and Target Acquisition System Module 1 for the purpose of this playthrough. I've also taken the Azur Lane Queen Elizabeth Commander, the reason being is she's a bit of an accuracy build for my Monarch and my Vanguard, and she's also got that ability to switch shells, which I do quite like, especially in a ship where the AP is a little bit more worthwhile. Now, one of the big differences between the Duke of York and the KG5 is the anti-aircraft armament. You're looking at having a lot more light 20mm and medium 40mm batteries. You're looking at approximately 40 more 40mm barrels and 31 more 20mm barrels. Now, she is represented in game in her late 1944 refit before she went out towards the Pacific. However, she also comes with a Type 9 permanent camouflage. This camouflage is basically a permanent camouflage, but it's equivalent to a consumable Type 4, and this is inspired by HMS Duke of York in her launch, which would have been 1941. God, this warship's horrible. Oh, I think I've gone through the entire review. I'm sorry for that quiet moment. I'll probably put some music over it. But yes, I was saying I'm not sure if so she's in her 1944 colour scheme, but it's slightly questionable colours. That was a rather tense battle. I wasn't really expecting that. I think we're going to be keeping this review. Anyway, let's discuss what I think of those bundles. So the main bundle, let's be honest, it just comes with some commander crates, a flag, and some booster flags. For 23,930 doubloons, worthwhile. It's your only chance to get the flag, let's be honest. It's available this week only. Apart from that, Unless you really specifically want everything that's included in it, or just that flag, it's probably not really worthwhile, because you could probably get the ship and whatever you want out of that pack cheaper, just by buying the ship and whatever you need. When it comes to the actual value of the ship, I think in the current meta, having a slower rate of fire, a worse DPM, only one sonar, less HP pool, less repair parties, slower rudder shift compared to the KG5. It's not exactly advertising, is the best way to put it. Obviously, one of the advantages of the Duke of York is that she can obviously earn you more credits by being a tier 6 premium. So potentially, in that respect, that is quite a nice little buff. In the future, with aircraft carriers known to be coming in the future, we don't know when though, having that enhanced medium and light anti-aircraft complement is probably going to be best at the tier for a battleship potentially. I think that's quite tempting maybe. If obviously it's only going to be there to protect you, you're not going to be able to protect other vessels around you. That's one thing to obviously mention. However, being able to protect yourself is obviously quite nice, especially when you consider your battleship. You're usually going to be quite slow. If you're quite slow, you're going to end up getting separated from your protection of cruisers and things like that. The sonar is an interesting gimmick. It's one of those where it's nice to have. I just would have really preferred to actually have a lot more of it. I think one charge is a little bit stingy. You almost feel like you have to hold on to it just in case. However, if you had two of them, at least you could kind of feel like you had like one disposable that you could use, and then another one that you could potentially use later on. I'm going to damage con that simply because we're so close to our death. We know the Scharnhorst has chucked torpedoes out, so this is where it's kind of like it's useful. Obviously only having two guns up front is a little bit irritating, because I'm not exactly going to be dishing out the DPM. We might see if we can just get one last volley into the side of the Scharnhorst. We might even just fire off the rear turret now just to ensure it. But the Scharnhorst has got a 20-second reload, so she should be able to wrap me up quite quickly before I can fire. Or she can just let me get a little bit more damage out of her. And there we go. So 114,000 damage. A very amusing kill on the Dunkirk, where I just simply slid my ship up along hers and, and got rid of her. And knocking out her two front turrets actually was also quite amusing. But yeah, 64 hits on target, 2 kills, 10 fires, using a good mix of HE and AP, I hope, during that. 84 secondary hits as well, which is quite amusing. Going on to the team results. Top of the team, top of the losing team, so well, it is what it is, unfortunately, I guess you could say, but managed to earn quite a decent amount of ship XP out of that. Going to the economy tab, obviously, due to being a tier 6 premium, the ship service cost is reduced to about 80,000 credits. In this case, it's 83,000 credits. And then with a common credit booster, like I usually apply, and the premium count, managed to walk away with 370,000 credits at the end of that. So, all in all, quite happy with that. Is she worth buying? I think if you're a Royal Navy collector, yeah, fair enough. Like myself, pick her up. Otherwise, she's a questionable purchase, especially in the current environment. I'd probably say, if you're potentially looking at her, maybe hold off and maybe pick her up once we know a little bit more about aircraft carriers, because then she could be quite interesting there. Otherwise, she's basically a KG5, slightly worse, but she has a couple of gimmicks here and there. Well, if you have enjoyed this, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. And if you are already a subscriber, I'd say thank you very much. Down in the description is the command build and the ship modules, the email address of the channel if you want to send in any of your own game captures for the community spotlight video on a Monday, and also the link to Patreon if you want to support the channel on Patreon, as it is a non-monetized channel. Until next time, I'm the Gareth Major, and back to the port.